it's Valerie of Val Reads and welcome to another video. Today is going to be a final update and wrap up on my 2017 reading goals. I'm really excited to do this video because not only has it been an entire year in the making, but my original 2017 reading goals video is one of, if not my most viewed video on this channel. So I'm hoping some of you guys are, still along for the ride, maybe somewhat invested in how my reading goals went. This video is going to be all about which goals I met, which goals I didn't meet, and I'm going to give you an entire rundown on all the books I read that went towards these goals. So my first batch of goals were sort of genre or type-based. The first goal I wanted to meet was to read a Victorian novel, and I did. I read Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy, which turned out to be my favorite book of the year. So thank you 2017 Val for setting out to do this goal, because I read Tess of the D'Urbervilles and I've never looked back. It's just such a wonderful book and I'm so glad I read it in 2017. I also wanted to read a play and I read The Crucible by Arthur Miller. This only seemed right because I did go to Salem in summer of 2017 and all the stars aligned. It was great. I love Salem. I love witches. The play was okay, but Salem, so good. I wanted to read a children's classic and I didn't do so sorry. For a short story collection, I read The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter. For a graphic novel, I read An Age of License by Lucy Knisley. For an epistolary novel, I read Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. For a debut novel, I read Shelter by Jung Yun. For a final novel, I read Persuasion by Jane Austen. For a true crime novel, I didn't read anything because once again, sorry. And finally, for a novel with multiple narrators, I read Homegoing by Ya Jassi. So for that category, I completed 8 out of the 10, which is pretty good for me. I usually fail at most things in life, so 8 out of 10 is totally great. My next batch of goals were geography based, so I wanted to read a book from an author based in their native country or region. So first up, I wanted to read a book from any country in Africa, and I read Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, which is based in Nigeria. For Australia, didn't read anything. For France, I read The Lover by Marguerite Duras. For India, I read The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. For Italy, I read The Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferrante. For the Middle East, I read Chicken with Plums by Marjane Satrapi, which is based in Iran. For New Zealand, I didn't read anything. For South America, I read Kiss of the Spider Woman by Manuel Puig, which is based in Argentina. For South Korea, I read Human Acts by Han Kang. For North Korea, I read The Accusation by Bandy. And finally, just Canada as a whole, I guess. I was gonna base it in Western Canada, but I realized I have read a decent amount of books from Western Canada, and then I said Eastern Canada, and this is sort of Eastern Central, I guess. This is based in Quebec, and it is Man by Kim Thuy. So I read 9 out of the 11 regions, which, once again, pretty good. My next set of goals were topics that I wanted to read about. So first off, I wanted to read a book about the occult, and of course I read The Crucible by Arthur Miller, which is largely about witchcraft. For a book about a contest or competition, I read Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Suzanne. This is a book about very competitive women in Hollywood and show business, and it's fantastic. For art, I read Laughter in the Dark by Vladimir Nabokov. For evil kids, I read Mildred Pierce by James M. Cain. For a book about brothers, I didn't read anything, but I mean, I've read East of Eden by John Steinbeck in the past, so like, I've already read the best book about brothers out there, so whatever. For a book about suicide or mysterious death, I read The Hours by Michael Cunningham. For revenge, I read Out by Natsuo Kirino. For betrayal, I read Mildred Pierce by James M. Cain. For a mental institution, I read Dracula by Bram Stoker, which I didn't realize would be so largely set in a mental institution, so I threw it in there. So for this category, I read 8 out of the 9, which doesn't really surprise me because these were topics that I was genuinely interested in. I mean, I guess I wasn't as interested in reading a book about brothers, but yeah, good job, Val. You know what you're into. Then I had a little category that was very sort of self-centered. I wanted to read a book written in the year I was born, which is 94. I did not do that. I wanted to read a book by an author named Valerie. Didn't do that. And then I wanted to read a book written by an author at my age, which was 22 or 23, and I did do that. I read The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers, that talented 23-year-old jerk. So I read only 1 out of those 3, which I guess means that I'm not as self-centered as I thought I was. I also wanted to read at least 5 2017 releases, which I did. I read Homesick for Another World by Ottessa Moshfegh, Boundless by Gillian Tamaki, Snot Girl Volume 1 by Brian Lee O'Malley and Leslie Hung, The Accusation by Bandy, and finally From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doughty. So I did read 5 2017 releases. I think I only read 5. I didn't read more than that, but that was the goal. And I did it. And of course, my largest and final challenge was to read 50 books. That was my Goodreads reading goal for the year. And I didn't do that either. I came very close. I read 47 out of the 50. I could have possibly made it if I had cared the littlest bit more, but once, you know, the last 2 weeks of December roll around and your goal isn't really within easy reach, you just kind of stop caring, or at least I do. So 47 out of the 50, not too bad. So those were my 2017 reading goals. I think on the whole I did pretty well. I'm actually quite surprised with how many I did accomplish, and I'm kind of proud of myself. That being said, I don't plan on having another reading year like that where I set out so many goals, especially such specific goals. I'm just gonna focus on reading what I want and going with the flow. This was just a fun thing to do for the year. It helped me create some good content and, you know, help my channel grow a little bit, of course. So I had fun with it. I hope you enjoyed it. I did make a few update videos along the way. So of course, the original video and those update videos will be linked down below so you can kind of see my journey. But yeah, it was fun. I'm not gonna do it again. I read some great books that I maybe wouldn't have otherwise, especially Out by Natsuo Kirino, which was so good. Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes, amazing. Kiss of the Spider-Woman was really fantastic, and I might not have taken the chance on it. And of course, Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. I hadn't read a lot of, if any, Victorian classics prior to reading this, and now I'm just so in love. I found a love for the Victorians through Thomas Hardy. 2017 wasn't as bad of a reading year as I thought it was, so thank you, Valerie of Valereads, for your challenge. But I'm not gonna do it again. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're proud of me for sticking to this challenge for an entire year, and let me know if you met or didn't meet some of your goals in 2017 and what you're planning to do with your reading in 2018. I would love to know. Okay, thank you. Happy reading. Bye!